is Helen with So Kind of Wonderful, and this video is the step-by-step instructions for making the Lotus block. Here is our Lotus block for zone 2. It's really fun to make, so just keep watching. I'm going to walk you through the step-by-step instructions for making this block. Welcome to the beginning of the Lotus block. We are going to be cutting Lotus. This is for zone 2. And this is the first time we've made Lotus, although it's not the first time. We have made this unique, a couple of the unique blocks in Lotus. Right here at the beginning, we have zone 2, shows the colorway, and zone 11. There's also these very light weight arrows if you want to focus on directional fabric. If you're not going to worry about it, then don't worry about it. In my original quilt, I have it going both directions. So, and you can't tell after it gets quilted. Sometimes you have a really bold stripe or something, that's when it would really help you. Let's see, anything else in this? We are going to be making the antler block. We make, let's see how many of those we make. We make 4 of them. So that's a lot of good practice for us to learn to make the antler block. So we have it here and here. All right, let's get started. All right, the first thing is, how are we cutting these shapes? Remember, the instructions for cutting these shapes are on 6 and 7, and this tells you how to cut it, how to cut your curves. And then for this block, everything here is in blue letters. So that means on our Wonder Curve ruler, we are using the blue lines for cutting. And our first one that we're cutting is our petal shape. And this is our yellow. I am going to keep these right sides together because we know it's a mirrored image. So I have 2 of them here, right sides together. It says I'm cutting both F and C. So for this shape, I know I'm using the dashed blue lines right here, and I'm just centering the 5-inch square in those dashed blue lines. Then go ahead and cut in the curve cutout. That's going to give me 2 shapes. And you can see because they were wrong sides together, I'm getting this. Okay, so I'm going to keep those, stacked up. I'll put my F's together, my C's together. All right, next one is this, and we have 2. So we need an A and a B. Oh, this is what we're doing. All right, so we're cutting A and B. And even though we're only going to use the B, because if you have directional fabric, this will help you. So put them going the same direction, but put them wrong sides together or right sides together. And then here you're going to cut an AB. So I'm lining it up right here on the solid blue V. Hold it securely. Go ahead and cut in your cutout. Might not have cut right there. You can always tell. You're like, yeah, I didn't keep pushing nice and hard. Maybe time for a new blade. And then when you look at the instructions, we're only going to keep these 2. We're only keeping the B's. So put this in the extras pile. We could have gotten these both out of 1 square, but then your fabric's going different directions. And if you have a really bold stripe, or it's really obvious, you would then notice that. Okay. Now we have twist C out of the black. I think this is called Waverly. So twist C I know cuts on the dashed blue line. And I have 2 of them, and they're wrong sides together. And the pattern does tell you that. It says you're cutting 2, 1 up and 1 down. And then by looking at those, now we have, this is where it's going to live in our Lotus block. And now the stripes, even though they're very light here, they do all go the same direction. All right, next is we are working with the brown dotty fabric. And we are working with Antler F first. We should have 2 that are 5 by 5 here. And processing. I know in my block it lives like this. So, actually it's like this. Okay, so I'm going to have my dots going this direction, kind of flat. And I'm cutting an F shape, and they are wrong sides together. An F is cut with the dashed blue line. So that'll go like that. This one will live up here on the next one. And then I also need, out of the brown, let's see, for this, we're only keeping the F. So put the C in your extras pile. And then out of this one, we have 2, they're wrong sides together. We're making a C and a D, which is also using the dashed blue line. And we are keeping both D's and both C's. And next we are working with our Lakeview fabric. I'm trying to remember the names of this fabric. I love this one. Okay, this one we are cutting, okay, so we're gonna cut an A and a B out of this. We're only keeping the B's. Let's see, does it matter? I'm kind of looking, where does this go? Again, I don't know, as quilters, we love to kind of stress about, is it directional? And yes, sometimes it really matters, but when we get done, it's going to be so beautiful that you stop looking, you stop hyper focusing on those small ones. All right, so we cut 2 B's. Now here I have 3.5 by 5s, and I have 4 of them, and they're wrong sides together. Let's just do them all at once. It says I'm going to cut 2 of each shape. And I'm using the dashed blue lines here. Cut in your curve cutout. It's going to give you D that are mirrored images and C. And then you have 2 twist C, 4 C's here. And you cut them wrong sides together. Notice I'm just keeping the stack as it is. Line it up in the dashed blue line. Cut in your curved slot. Discard this piece, and we should have 4 C's. And then our last set to cut are the backgrounds. Here we are starting with 4 5x5s, and these need to be wrong sides together, which they are, or right sides together. Just need to cut half of them up, half of them down. We are making the F shape, which is the dashed blue line. Go ahead, put it in the dashed blue V, cut in your curved slot. And we are discarding the C's. So put those in the save pile because you might need them. We should have 4. Yes, we do. And then we have 2 3.5 by 5. We are going to make a C and a D. So dashed blue line again. Cut in the curved slot. And you should have 2 D's and 2 C's that are mirror images. Okay, we are all cut out. And that is such a fast method for getting all of these curved shapes. So let's go ahead and lay out our curved sets that we'll be sewing together. All right, I cleaned everything up and we are going to look right here in our pattern. We are on page 41. This is what we are setting up. It tells you the name, and the color also matches if you are using cottage cloth. And it tells you the amounts. So that's what I am looking at. And my first one I'm starting with are some D backgrounds. And for D and C, they go, one will go this, one is here, one is this way. And then I am laying them out with C of Lakeview. So remember on these, C and D, when you lay these out, they should look like a rectangle. And I have 1 of each here. Yes, that is the right direction. Okay, so those, and then I should have the opposite setup here. So I also have let's make a little more room. Also need this and this. And then I'm using the background and laying them out. And how do I know I'm getting the right one with the right? Because if I swapped these like this, it does not look like a rectangle. So before you even sew, when you put them together, it should look like a rectangle. Okay. And then we have accent. Same thing again. We have this one, and then we are putting the teal in there, and then we have accent again. And then this time we have the dark. The black goes in here. Okay. All right, just to give myself more room, this isn't what I would normally do anyway. I just put the smaller one on the bigger one. I keep concave on the bottom because I know that's what I'll do at the sewing machine. And now for me, these are all ready to sew. All right, so my next one is, I'm looking at this shape here and here, and putting the teal in here. And then I have, and I have 2 of those. Okay, so 2. I was wondering why I have all those pieces. All right, and then we're going to do the same setup with our brown and yellow F pieces. And then we are putting the yellow with the brown and the brown with the yellow. Okay, again, I'm putting those on top. I know that what that means for me, that's my system, and you will have your own system. Okay, those are all going to be sewn, and you should have left over 2 blue bee pieces and 2 blue black pieces. In our pattern, the first thing it shows is that we are sewing the C and D pieces together. So remember how we have 2 directions. So this is our first one, and I changed the camera angle from our previous videos. I think this one will show better. And so here we have D and C. It looks like a rectangle. C flips over on D, and we leave a 1/4 inch tail of D. Go ahead, sew a couple stitches, and then hold one piece in each hand. And with my right hand, all I do is manage D by just shifting it over, but I actually never grab it. And then I just pinch it as it feeds through. Okay, there's our first one. And then for this one, again, it's the same shape, but we need to start on the other end of the D because we want concave to stay on the bottom. So we flip that over, give ourselves that 1/4 inch tail again, right here. There we are. And when you're done, the other side where you end should have about a 1/4 inch for this block. And if it's really long, then you're pulling on D as it feeds into the machine. And it's really hard to train yourself not to. That's how I used to sew a lot. So I had to use a stylus to start with to kind of keep me from pulling on that bottom piece. So I'm going to go ahead and sew all of these. I can chain sew them at this stage. And I think the faster you go, the easier it is. So you can see how stacking them, I just pick up the next 2, and that's what I'm sewing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish sewing these, but let's first talk about our other sewing. So we also have F and C. So let me show you one of each of these. And this is actually the exact same shapes as D. It's just the F is wider, but there's not anything different about it. You still have this one that you sew and this one. And let me look at my tails on this. So the only thing that's different is this one has a 1/4 inch tail that starts like this. And the pattern does tell you that. Okay. And when you get done, it's about a 1/2 inch from the edge. So when we start this one, we actually want this one to be down a 1/2 inch when we start. So that's a good little check for you back and forth. right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish sewing all of my pieces. Okay, I have all my blocks sewn, and now it is time to press. Pattern gives you a pressing diagram. It shows you with an arrow which way to press. And so let's first talk C and D. So for C and D, if it is, if they're both focus fabrics, then press to C. Press to C. If they are, sorry, if they are background and focus, press to C. And if they are the other direction, this one, then I would press to D. So the instructions say that, but I don't know. And again, this is pressing. You can do whatever you want. We actually feel like if it really matters, we'll tell you. But, oh, and look, I just pressed that the other way. It doesn't really matter. By the time you quilt it and get it all done, it's going to be fine. Okay. So it naturally wants to lay down. This is an easy one to press from the front. If you like to press from the front better. So these are my C and D. Okay, so this is the one I want to press to focus. All right, so let's talk about our F and C. So for F and C, always press to C, even if it is focus and the other piece is background, because that will really help when we make our block, not get too many layers in the corner. So always just press to C. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and press on my blocks. Okay, I have pressed, we have sewn our curves, and now we have these C and F pieces. The ones with background and focus, these we will square up to 4 inches. But these we are going to do another cut on and add our B pieces. So I put them in 2 piles because these 2 are the same and these 2 are the same, not the same fabric orientation, but the same shape. So now I'm looking in my pattern, and let's work with these first. And the pattern shows that we set this on point, and then we use our Wonder Curve ruler, and we are positioning the blue dot on the solid blue V. And we're putting it right on the curved seam. So right here, let me see if I can get nice and close for you. Right here, there is a blue dot. We're going to put that right on the seam. And I'm trying to think. I'm just going to put it right in the middle. And then up here on this end, we look at the opening right here. Look at the opening. And what we want to see is this intersection where the brown and yellow come together right at the end of the brown. So I'm positioning that right under the opening here, and then my blue dot is here, and then I'm cutting in my curve cutout. This is our discard, and then this is our shape. And then if you have a little tail right there, you can just trim that off. All right, let's do that with our other one of that same orientation. Again, the dot, and then here. And if your dot isn't on the seam, to get this in, then go ahead and just go right off down from it. So as long as it's in about the right, you know, zip code, it's just down. I don't know, it's a terrible idiom to use. And we do make this shape a lot in the Floral Felicity pattern. So you will get more and more comfortable with it. All right, now we're doing everything in reverse. Okay, this point is down. Find your solid blue dot on the other side. Here, put it on your seam. Go ahead and see if you can see that opening right here. And I can see where the curve seam ends, yes. Okay, line those up. Trim off that little tail. And one more time. And trim the tail. Okay, now remember the B pieces we had left over. Let's figure out which one they sew to. Okay, so your pattern shows you that, let's set it up the way the pattern shows. Pattern has, okay, this piece, I am looking at number 7. So we have here, and this goes with a teal. This, okay. And then we have this shape, goes with black. So here the brown is in the middle and it goes with teal. Here the yellow is in the middle and it goes with the black. So I'm setting those up for me to sew. And then let's figure out this one. So here we have brown goes with teal and the yellow is touching the black. Okay, so those go like that. So now I am ready for sewing. When I sew, it is going to be the same concept. Now this is at the sewing machine. Concave stays on the bottom. This is going to flip over. I know on this one we have an 1/8 inch tail. The book says 1/4. Let me check. For me, I'm going to need to do an 1/8. How do I know? Because this piece is a little bit larger than this. And I can tell. If they were lined up, it would be more of a 1/4. So I so skinny, you might have eaten up more of your block. So let's try 1 at a 1/4. And then if I need to adjust, I'll show you what I do. All right, so this is our first one. So remember, we're first going to sew it with the 1/4 inch tail. Okay. Adjusting my focus. I want it to stay in focus for while I'm sewing. And as it goes around, I'm just bringing curved edges together. Oh, look, we have a 1/4 inch on the bottom and a 1/4 inch on top. That's exactly what we want. Follow the pattern. Yes. Let's do the other side, the other direction. Okay, so again, concave on the bottom. Let's flip this over, do a 1/4 inch tail. Okay, excellent. I'm going to go ahead and sew those other 2 blocks, and then we'll talk about pressing and squaring up. All right, all my blocks turn out nicely. When you're sewing your curves, if you're getting little ripples in here on your concave, then as you're sewing, what's happening is it's getting pulled and then it kind of bounces back, and that's how you're getting some little ruffles, fluffy things. I know this because that's how my sewing used to look. Okay. All right, for this one, it naturally wants to lay down this way, but we actually feel like it's better if it presses out. And what that does is it eliminates too much bulk right here in this corner. So your instructions tell you to press toward your B, just like that. And we do that for all of them. And we've used this shape in many patterns. It is called the antler point because the very first time we used it was in our Urbanology sampler quilt, and we had antlers in there. And this was the point. So it's a very fun shape. We find lots of places to make it. Yeah. All right, we are all pressed. Ready to talk about square up. So the next thing to do is to put all of your pieces in similar piles. Like, you know, like those are the same shape. And I'm looking at the piecing on here. Those. And then I need to do the same with the C and D's because I have mirrored shapes here. So all of these need to be sorted also. And this will make square up much easier. And we suggest this anytime you are squaring up. Okay. Now we are going to check out our pattern, and we'll be squaring all of these up. So the first thing we're doing was squaring up C and D units. And it shows us we're doing this pile first. And this is going to be 2 1/4 by 4 inches. Let me find one I feel like you can see easily. So with this orientation, we set it up, we do exactly what the pattern shows. And we are putting our 2-inch mark right here on the top on our curved seam. And then our blue dot is over here, and you slide it until your blue dot is on the curve. Let's see if we can get a little closer. So we have blue dot on the curve and 2-inch mark on the seam. We're going to make a 2 1/4 by 4 inch, but this 2-inch mark helps create seam allowance for us. So trim 2 sides. Move your ruler out of the way, rotate your block 180 degrees. Now reposition the Wonder Curve ruler with the 2 1/4 on trimmed edge, and then 4 inch on the bottom on the trimmed edge. And now we're just cutting off whatever is left. We've already decided where the curve should be. All of those decisions were made before the first cut. That's what we're doing with all of that set. All right, let's talk about the other direction. The other direction, we just set it up how the pattern shows. If you are left-handed, turn your pattern 90 degrees to the left, and then you will set up your block, some ruler, the way the pattern looks when it's turned 90 degrees to the left. Okay, here, everything is a mirror. So we're working on the opposite side. 2-inch mark on the right is on our curved seam. Our blue dot is on the curved seam. Yes, we have enough for 4 by 2 1/4. Go ahead and trim 2 sides. Rotate your block. Put trimmed edges on 4 and 2 1/4. So here we have 4 and 2 1/4. And trim whatever is left. Okay, I need to do that with all 4 that are this orientation. And you can see how repeating this will get you some really good muscle memory. All right, for this one, let's go here. We have 2 different shapes. I mean, same shape, but they're mirrored. So this is our first orientation. Here we're making a 4-inch square. We could use our 4-inch square up. Ooh, let's do it once here, and then we'll do it with the 4-inch. All right, most important is the 2-inch mark. Put 2-inch on your seam. This is most important because when you sew this block to the next one, there will be a seam there, and if it's off, you're going to notice that. The other 2 places, we can hide those in the seam allowance. And then the point here should be at the blue dot, and then we want the curved seam close to the blue dot. If you have to give up a point, give up this one, because this will just sew in your seam allowance and it will look fine. How do I know these things? I may have done that a lot. Okay, so I'm just kind of, splitting the difference on those, making a 4-inch block here. Trim, trim, move the ruler, rotate the block, and now put trimmed edges on the 4s. So I'm just 4s, 4s. And trim up whatever is left. Okay, now you have this perfectly unique squared up block. All right, let's do that one more time with the other orientation. Here, our point is up here at top left. Blue dot, 2-inch mark on the seam, and then blue dot should be close. I sew a skinny seam, so mine always is like falling off. I have to kind of tell myself, so chunky. So if you're doing the same thing, anyway, that's a suggestion, because it eats into that yellow just a tad. Okay, go ahead and trim 2 sides. Rotate. Oh, and I said I was going to show you the sew square 4. So let's do it again. Now I'm on trimmed edges on the 4s. Isn't that great? Oh, I just love this block. All right, let's do it again with our sew square 4, because many of you have this. It's such a fun little ruler. And here we have black dots. So black dots are the same as blue dots on your Wonder Curve. Put the point on the dot, 2-inch mark on the seam, and then black dot as close as you can get it. And I'm kind of like processing, how do I get that closer? That's just the way it is. Right there. This is the most important, the 2. So keep the 2 on. Now trim, if you have a rotating mat, this is where you use it. I trim 2 sides and then rotate and then trim the remaining 2 sides. I find it easier to do it in 2s because then you only rotate once. Ah, there it is. And we have one more. Two-inch mark on my seam. Point on the dot, and the other one, and then do 4 inches. Okay, I've got to square up all my C and D's, and then we'll come back together. So if you're just following along and working with me, go ahead and pause, and we'll come back and finish putting this block together. All right, look what I found underneath my pressing mat. Yes, we have one more square up to talk about. This is our CF. This squares to 4 inches. Let's do this. Let's use our sew square 4. So same principles here. For this one, the 2-inch mark is the most important. And then we put our dot on the curved seam. And you have all of the curved seam to play with because we're not working with the 3rd point over here. So if you need to slide, you can slide it up. You can come down if you're working with directional fabric. So that looks really good right there for me. Trim 2 sides. Rotate. And trim your other 2 sides. Okay, that is our CF. And then we also have it the other direction. So here our 2-inch mark on the right. And then our dot is, our blue dot or our black dot is on the curve. And square it to 4 inches. Okay, now we'll finish squaring up all our blocks. All my pieces are squared up, so let's go ahead and start laying this out. If you look at page 42, there is a diagram of the block laid out. And so I'm just looking for the right pieces here, and I'm just starting at the top and laying out. This is a lot like doing a puzzle. If you like puzzles, you know, this is for you. Oh, look, I just found a block not squared up. Well, let's take care of that really fast. We do love the whole square up process. I feel like it makes sewing curves very successful. It takes away the stress of having to be the perfect sewer right, you know, at the beginning. All right, and then I have these on the, oh look, there's another block not squared up. All right, I obviously was anxious to get to sewing. All right, and then we have this one and this one. And then, nope, there. And you can see how that happens where you're just like, okay, switch it around until you find the right place where it lives. And there is our Lotus block. Oh yeah. So fun. All right, so question, is there any way you can make this have a different look? You could try swapping a few things. You know, it's not really something that we had processed, but honestly, as long as the size ends up the same, you could totally do this. I mean, this is where the fun kind of comes from, playing with your blocks. That's interesting. No. Nope, that doesn't look great. Okay. So you do have a few options if you are like, yep, that's me. I like to just do something funky. And if you are a follow the pattern person, great. We think the pattern's perfect. Okay. So for sewing this, you will need to sew in, let's see, let's sew it in, what does it tell us to do? Sew in rows? Rows. So I need to sew these together before I can make this row. And then sew this row and this row. Press your seams open, and then we'll sew our rows together. I have my Lotus block sewn into rows. And here I wanted to show you the back. So press open. That will really help manage the layers of fabric in those intersections. And now I'm ready to sew the rows together and press open. Block. Here is Lotus block all sewn together. And you can see seams are pressed open. Yeah, very good. All right, I only have one more to make in zone 2. I have the foxglove, but here is the Lotus block. Oh, remember, now is a good time to check your dimensions. This should be 14.5 wide by 11 inches tall. So check yours. If it's not quite that, think about adjusting your seams. If you're a little large, just trim it up a bit. If you're a little small, see if there's a couple seams that need to be unsewn and resewed.